Welcome back to the show today. We're asking the question, is home court advantage a real thing? Is there any real advantage to playing in your own stadium? I mean, it's not even like they practice there. And NBA courts are all pretty standardized. It's not like the TD Garden has a particularly stiff rim on the north side, or the Intuit Dome has a slick spot near the logo. The officials check every part of the court to make sure it's up to code before every game. The $90,000 hydraulic stanchion is given to them by the NBA. The only stadiums that I believe you could argue have a different look than any of the others are Crypto.com Arena and Madison Square Garden. Both the Lakers and the Knicks light the court but leave the rest of the stadium dark. I guess they call it boxing lighting, like it's a boxing match. Some players complain that it changes their depth perception, but to me it just seems like an excuse for a bad shooting night. I'll say though, when you went to a Clippers game when they were playing at the Staples Center, it was completely different than a Lakers game. A Lakers game felt like a concert because everything was dark except for the court, like it was a stage. A Clippers game at the Staples Center felt like you were at a conference, like you should be wearing a lanyard with your name on it, like it was a gathering of people with a basketball game going on in the middle. But either way, I couldn't see why that would give the Lakers an advantage at home. Seems to me just like a matter of preference. But which NBA arena is the loudest? Surely the team that has the loudest fans cheering for everything they do that's positive is going to give them some type of advantage, right? Well, coincidentally, it's the reigning champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, in the Paycom Center. People say that that stadium is loud the entire game, and then it's especially loud when the Oklahoma City Thunder do something cool, which is kind of funny because if you go to a Clippers game, you can pretty much have a conversation during the entire game. You don't even need to raise your voice. The thing is though, Oklahoma City kind of cheats in a way, or at least they did in the finals. They give away these fan bam noisemakers that are very loud, and I'm sure the crowd is very loud too, but they're just screaming over the noisemaker. Although the actual loudest stadium is the Kings' old arena, the ironically named Sleep Train Arena. They hit 126 decibels in 2013 in a loss against the Detroit Pistons. 126 decibels is obnoxiously loud. For reference, this is a decibel reader that was going off during Game 7 of the finals this year at the Paycom Center. It's not even close to that high. But the person with a real advantage when it comes to noise in an arena is DeMar DeRozan.
In any particular game, if he steps the wrong way or something,
That was DeMar DeRozan's daughter screaming every time the Raptors shot a free throw. The Bulls did win, and the Raptors did miss a lot of free throws. But let's look at actual data from year to year. Does the home team win more often than the away team in the NBA? Yes, they do. Well, kind of. It's not as much as you'd think. Last year, if we took the win percentage of all the home teams, it's only 54%. And this includes the playoffs, and that would mean that the home team is statistically a better team than the away team too. What's even weirder is some teams are actually better when they're away. Last year, the Celtics won 68% of their home games, which is good, but they won 76% of their games on the road. I guess the Celtics do better when they're being talked dirty to, and praise makes them a bit lazy. But on the other hand, the Phoenix Suns were actually a pretty decent team at home. They won 59% of their home games, but their away games, they only won 28%. Now, last season, who had the best home record? It was the Oklahoma City Thunder. They won 85% of their home games. Is that the greatest home record of all time? No, not even close. The NBA's greatest home season of all time is also the greatest home season in sports history. It belongs to the 2015-2016 San Antonio Spurs, who lost only one game at home. The reason you probably don't know this, if you don't know this, and you probably don't know this, is because the Golden State Warriors broke the regular season record that year, winning 73 games and only losing 9. The real reason home teams have an advantage is because they don't have to travel. They can sleep in their own bed. They don't have to take a plane to go to work. NBA players travel around 50,000 miles a year. They spend more time in transit than they do on a court. They're always adjusting to time zones, or they really never even get used to a time zone. The worst situation a team can be in though is if they have to play 2 away games back to back. They have to go to 2 different cities, which happens a lot. The Celtics even have one this week. On Sunday they played the Detroit Pistons, and then on Monday they got to play the Pelicans in Detroit, and then they got to fly to New Orleans. So not only will they be tired from traveling, they won't have any time to game plan. If Missoula notices some glaring problem, he's got to handle that on the plane. He's got to diagnose it on the plane watching tape, and then he's got to relay it to his whole team. And then good luck trying to run some simulation before tip-off. The biggest disadvantage though an away team has is having to travel from West Coast to East Coast. This goes across all sports too. When you travel from west to east, your day shortens, making you believe that you've been awake longer than you have, causing you to have a hard time sleeping, and then you wake up late. You know this, you're a person, you've flown from PST to EST. But the Spurs actually have the longest road trip in the NBA every season. In February and March every year, they have to play either 5 or 6 games games away in a row. But it's their fault. The rodeo comes to San Antonio and they have to get out of town. San Antonio ain't big enough for the both of them. Or at least the Frost Bank Center isn't. But Denver sports teams have the ultimate advantage. They train and play most of their games at a higher elevation. The higher the elevation, the lower the barometric pressure, making it more difficult for oxygen to get to your lungs. The human body has to work harder to function in Denver. It's estimated that every 1,000 feet in elevation, your body has to work 2% harder to oxidize its red blood cells. Meaning in Denver, it's 10% harder to play basketball. So that means teams that spend most of their time in Denver are just in better shape than any other team. Their red blood cell count is always higher because they're used to having less oxygen. That's why the Olympic Training Center is in Colorado, because it's at 6,000 feet. It's like training with a weighted vest. Once you take the weighted vest off, you're kind of a god. But some athletes can't even play in Denver because of a medical condition. If an athlete has the sickle cell trait, playing at high elevation can change the shape of their blood cells, leading to a blood clot. Free safety Ryan Clark had to leave a game in Denver in 2007 because of complications of his sickle cell trait. He ended up having to have his spleen and gallbladder removed. He almost died. He made his way back to football and eventually won a Super Bowl, but he never played in Denver again. The thin air in Denver has an effect outside the human body as well. The ball travels through the air a lot faster. Now, that doesn't really matter in basketball. It kind of matters in football. The punts go a lot further. Maybe the QB has to adjust his throw, but it does affect a baseball pitcher. The Colorado Rockies always have a hard time finding a pitcher because breaking balls don't break very much in thin air. Curveballs don't really bite. And a pop fly that would be an easy out in most stadiums ends up being a home run at Coors Field. That's about as scientific as an explanation as I got for you. Low pressure makes things defy gravity a little bit. Now, which sport does the home team have the biggest advantage? Take a guess. I'm not going to tell you yet. Well, in baseball, the home team doesn't really have much of an advantage at all. It doesn't really matter. The home team only wins a little bit more than 50% more than the away team, in spite of the fact that baseball doesn't have a standardized field. Every team's stadium size is unique to them, but even having a custom field doesn't matter. The truth is, baseball is a very random sport. There are a lot of different factors that affect the outcome of a game. Which team the crowd is cheering for is not one of those factors. That's also why the MLB has so many games. You need a very large sample size to decide which teams are the best. The sport with the biggest home field advantage is a sport with a field, or a pitch, not a rink. Not a court, it's soccer. Or proper football if you're a dickhead who's going to correct me. The reason is the fans. The fans are so loud that they subconsciously affect the ref's behavior. In a soccer match, there are always more calls for the home team. If the home team is losing, there's always a little more stoppage time added. It's also cited that teams like Manchester United and Manchester City, teams with very huge fan bases and have very loud stadiums, are always likely to receive more penalty kicks. Think about it. If a player goes down in the penalty box and the whole crowd groans, that's gonna make the foul seem significantly more dramatic than a guy just sort of quietly falling over. This might also explain why the Oklahoma City Thunder are so good at home. The Thunder fans help Shea sell the foul call. I'm kidding, Shea gets just as many fouls as he does away as when he's at home. So personally, I think NBA teams should get more than just a home court advantage in the playoffs. As we all know now, home court advantage is kind of bullshit. Not complete bullshit, but getting only 4 games out of 7 at home is not enough advantage for the higher seeded team. It doesn't reward the team with the better record enough. I think they should play the first 3 games of the series at home, and then the next 3 you can play at the lower seed if they have to play. That would incentivize teams during the regular season to really try to get that #1 seed. Think, if your team has the best record in the league, you're playing game 1, game 2, game 3 all in your own stadium during the finals. There'd also be less traveling, save some jet fuel, reduce your carbon imprint. I'm sure Kawhi would love that. But the real advantage the NBA needs to give higher seeded teams is letting them pick their opponent. Imagine the rivalries we would get out of this. Imagine the 6th seed getting called out by the #1 seed. Imagine the Oklahoma City Thunder calling out Luka, LeBron, and the Lakers because they thought the Lakers were frauds and they wanted to play them in the first round. Now this would be a real advantage. We also wouldn't have that dumb situation at the end of the season where teams are trying to lose because they won a certain matchup. Either way, they need to do something to give the higher seeded teams a bigger advantage, because home court advantage, as we now know, is overrated. Alright, thank you for being here. I need a creative way to tell you to like the video, to stick out from the other ways I've told you to like the video. And I think that was it. There's a Patreon. Get a podcast every week, $2 a month. I love my Patreon people the most. I really do. I love all of you, but Patreon the most. Be good to your mothers. Leave a comment.